This is our October 14th meeting of the committee. I'm City Councilor Jesse Letterman, the chair of the Sustainability and Environment Committee. I'm joined by my colleague, Councilor Victor Davila, who is the other main Councilor, Gumercindo Gomez. We appreciate being here. We are representatives of Eversource Utility, and they are going to be giving a presentation on their proposed reliability project, as it's been termed. And so with the structure of this meeting, we're going to entertain introductions from the Eversource team, led by Joe Mitchell. We'll then hear a short presentation by Eversource relative to their proposal, and then we'll enter into questions from members of the committee and the City Council. I do also want to thank, for being on the call, our City Solicitor, Ed Pacula, and the Director of DPW, Chris Signoli. Thank you for being here. And so at this time, Joe, I'd invite you to come forward, introduce yourself and your team, and proceed with your presentation.
Thank you very much, Chairman Letterman. Can everybody hear me? We'll nod. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, City Council members, for allowing us to present before you and share with you part of our outreach for this important Western Massachusetts reliability project. My name is Joe Mitchell. I'm the Community Relations Specialist for Western Massachusetts for Eversource Energy, and Springfield and Longmeadow are two of my communities. With me, I have Richard Salvarezza, who he is the project manager for the Western Mass Natural Gas Reliability Project, and Mark Gonzalez, who is the general manager for Eversource Gas of Massachusetts. There are some others in attendance from Eversource. They're just observing, and some of them are subject matter experts. So as we get into the Q&A at the end, we can address your questions more accurately. I'm going to go through some slides. It'll take approximately 15 minutes. I've spoken with Councilor Letterman. We want to inform you as to what our project entails, and then we'll open up to Q&A. We just want to make sure you understand where we're coming from, and then we're more than happy to answer your questions. I'll defer to Councilor Letterman through the chair if you want to take questions during the presentation. If somebody has something really burning, I'm more than happy to do that, but that's up to Chairman Letterman.
Joe, I think it'll make the most sense to do the whole presentation and then to engage in dialogue and questions.
Absolutely. No, that makes sense to me. I'm actually prefer hearing that, and I'll go for the presentation. So I'm going to share my screen, and can everybody see that leading slide?
Yes, we can see it.
And I can only see a couple faces, so if you wave your hands or whatever, you'll have to raise your voice, because what presentation I have now, I can't see you guys anymore.
We can see it.
So thank you for having us, and this is, that's my introduction slide right there. So what I'm going to talk about here in the next 15 minutes is, first, the project need. As I said before, it is a reliability project. Eversource, it's our mission to provide the safe and reliable delivery of our energy products. At the conclusion of this briefing, I'm hoping that you have a better understanding that, we at Eversource, we're just trying to mitigate a reliability risk that currently exists with 58,000 of our customers in the greater Springfield area. And of those, more than 33,000 of them are Springfield residents. What I'll cover is the scope of the project that we're proposing, how we chose the route, the analysis we went through. I'll move forward onto what the routes that we are going to bring forward to the Energy Facility Siting Board, or EFSB. And for your information, projects of this size go before the Energy Facility Siting Board, which is part of the Department of Public Utilities. They will be the ones that decide, one, if this project is worth moving forward on, and then two, if so, what route would be chosen. Well, I'll discuss the point of delivery system in Longmeadow that is part of the Tennessee Gas Pipeline Group. That's their property, and they are the transmission company. I'll go into that in a little more detail in a moment. We'll talk about the non-build alternatives that we've considered and that we'll bring forward to the EFSB. We'll talk about the regulatory approval process with the EFSB. additional approvals that the project would need, the community outreach that we've undertaken and will continue to do so, and then we'll open it up to questions, and you'll have my contact information and some others. So why is Eversource proposing this project? So what we have here, if you look at the map, and I hope you can see my cursor, there's a shaded area that encompasses 7 towns. On the eastern side of the Connecticut River, there's Chicopee to the north, Springfield, which has the most customers or your constituents, parts of Longmeadow and East Longmeadow. On the western side of the Connecticut River, there's West Springfield, Agawam, and Southwick, and it encompasses all of these towns. The green line you see at the bottom, that is a simplified version or simplified depiction, excuse me, of the Tennessee Gas Pipeline. The gas flows from the west to the east, and it's not depicted on this map, but in East Longmeadow, there is a point of delivery system where Tennessee Gas Pipeline, they are a transmission company. Not unlike on the electric side, transmission is tall towers, big wires, high voltage across great distances. On the gas side of the house, it's very similar in the Tennessee Gas Pipeline's transmission, bigger pipes, great distances, larger volumes of gas. We get this product from them and we distribute it, we're a distribution company, to our customers, 58,000 of them in the greater Springfield area. This gas that Tennessee Gas transmits to us at our Agawam gate station, that's where we take control of the gas, we lower the pressure, and we have our distribution network to our existing customers. It flows, and so the Agawam gate station, it's located at the top of Springfield Street. If you know the area, it's essentially across the street from Dave's Soda and Pets. We have a pipe that runs underneath the road there, down Memorial Drive and across the Memorial Bridge, and then it turns south on Columbus Ave, and where we bring it to our Bliss Street regulator station. And a point of reference there is you may not notice that when you go past it. It's located very close to the old Basketball Hall of Fame. And so, as you're probably aware, counselors, that a year ago, I think today, we acquired the assets of Columbia Gas Company, and with it came, this pipeline and some of their projects. And our predecessors noticed, in June 10 years ago, that 2011, that a tornado, touched down here in Western Massachusetts. I'm sure you all remember it. And you may remember the video taken from one of the taller buildings in the Springfield area, showing that tornado dancing around the western side of the Memorial Bridge and then coming across the Connecticut River. This alarmed the folks, the leaders at Columbia Gas, in that had there been a break at the Memorial Bridge of that gas pipeline, that would have left 40,000 customers on the east side of the Connecticut River, Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, East Longmeadow, with an interruption of gas service. And what's problematic is, unlike somebody on the phone, last 4 digits, can you mute your phone?
They're muted now.
So,
here I am.
Thank you. Lost my train of thought there. So 40,000 customers would have been interrupted. What our intent to do is, on the southern half of Longmeadow, Tennessee Gas Pipeline has purchased 2.5 acres, and they propose to install, along with us, a point of delivery system so that we, Eversource, can have another source to distribute this gas. What we would do is we would place another pipe from the point of delivery system to the north up to our Bliss Street station. And what this would do is it would create a loop for redundancy or for liability. On the electric side and the gas side, we like to have loops. That way we have a way to backfeed, if you will, our product in case there is an interruption, whether it be from maintenance or some contractor hitting our line. By doing this, should there be an interruption at the Memorial Bridge, we have a second point of feed up to our Bliss Street station, and we can service those 40,000 customers on the eastern side of the river. Similarly, should there be an interruption at the Agawam gate station, we can backfeed across the Connecticut River to our customers on the western side, the additional 18,000. And we talk about 58,000 customers, those are meters. So as far as homes and families of 4 or more, and schools and hospitals and major city facilities, the number of actual individuals impacted would be significantly higher than the 58,000. What I'd really like to stress at this point is that this is a reliability project. We're trying to create a loop to mitigate an existing risk and is not an expansion project. We want to mitigate the risk to our existing customers here in the greater Springfield area. So what is this project? What would be the benefit and what are the risks? Well, the purpose is to strengthen our existing distribution network. By having this second loop, we're able to isolate maintenance issues or accidents, take care of those problems without impacting as many customers, and it allows us to better address our preventive maintenance or even removal of leak-prone pipe, which is something we're aggressively pursuing as part of our GSEP program in the greater Springfield area. The risk is to 58,000 customers should there be an interruption at the Agawam Gate Station. What it's important to point out to this group is for restoration, should there be an outage of gas supply, it could be as long as 6 weeks. Unlike electric, where, and we've all experienced it, if there's a windstorm, ice storm, and trees fall on the wires, and there's an interruption of our gas distribution, we clear the trees, we restring the wires, and essentially we close a breaker, and all of our customers are re-energized. That's not the case with gas. When there's a gas interruption, we have to shut off all the valves to make them safe. And for everybody who's downstream, we make the repairs, and then crews go and open the valves and resupply the gas to the homes and the businesses. They do safety checks and they relight all the pilots. This could take an extended period of time, even up to months if there was a very large outage, including the repairs that would need to be made. And this, in an environmental justice community, like Springfield, these impacts will be felt more acutely to your constituents, councilors. So what is our proposed solution to mitigate this risk? What Eversource proposes to do is to assist Tennessee Gas Pipeline and construct a new point of delivery station in Longmeadow. What we then propose to do is Eversource, we will install a new 16-inch steel pipeline from the point of delivery in Longmeadow to our existing Bliss Street regulator station in Springfield. While we're doing that, we would upgrade and replace some pipe that is nearby our chosen path, and then also we'll make some regulator station upgrades. So this is our proposed, we looked at many different solutions here. This is our proposed solution to close that reliability gap. So we looked at many different routes to mitigate this risk. A couple of givens, a couple of things we're confined with is one, the route will start at the, or for this solution anyway, the route will start at the Tennessee Gas Pipeline point of delivery system on Hazardville Road. It's essentially, it's a piece of property that TGP purchased from the Longmeadow Country Club. All routes will terminate at the existing Bliss Street regulator station. We analyzed the routes using an extensive regulatory precedent, looking at things like environmental and community and engineering. So many different factors went into it, and our group looked at this, and we looked at a large universe of possibilities, and we've narrowed it down to just a couple of routes that we're going to propose to the Energy Facility Siting Board. Also, we're continuing to seek input from the community with our proposed routes, but then also with the entire universe of options. So what did we come up with, or what are we proposing to the Energy Facility Siting Board? After extensive analysis, our preferred route is this solid purple route, which essentially it goes north on Shaker, which becomes Laurel, It turns west onto Converse. It goes north on Longmeadow Street, under the Longmeadow curve, up the entrance ramp, and then down Long Hill to East Columbus. And actually, if you give me just a minute, I have a more detailed map that as of today, it's going to be on our website, so everyone can see it, but this is the first time presenting publicly anyway. So our preferred route is this yellow one here. Our preferred route first variation is similar in that it goes north on Shaker, which becomes Laurel, as we said. It's going to go west on William Street, then it follows Longmeadow Street, excuse me, and again, down the off ramp, up the on ramp, down Long Hill to our Bliss Street station. Our preferred route variation number 2 is again, north on Shaker, becomes Laurel. It goes all the way up Laurel, west on Glen Road, into Forest Park on Magawiska Road, then exits the park down Long Hill, East Columbus to Bliss Street Station. Our noticed alternative, which is also known as the Eastern Route, travels north on Shaker, becomes Laurel, east on Converse, and then north on Dickinson Street. And it's not really depicted very well here, but the plan is to, before we get to the X, to turn onto one of the side streets and avoid the X proper. And then west on Sumner Ave, continuing on to Long Hill to Columbus to our Bliss Street station. It's important to note that all of these routes are in the right of way. So we don't anticipate any property takings or anything like that. They're all going to be in the right of way. And give me 1 second.
Mr. Chair, I have a question about that, if it's all right.
Councilor Fenton, thanks for joining us. I think in the beginning, we agreed we were going to just hear the presentation and then take questions at the end. Is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate your question, Councilor Fenton, but we'd be more than happy to address it at the very end. So the Longmeadow, proposed Longmeadow point of delivery system, we want the point of delivery to be as unobtrusive as possible. We're going to use building materials that match the existing groundskeeper's building. And also we're going to be using noise reduction construction materials and methods. This is a layout of the proposed Longmeadow point of delivery site. What's worth noting is that we're proposing 5 buildings on the site. 2 of them will be owned by Tennessee Gas Pipeline. 3 will be owned by Eversource Gas. And what will be in there is some infrastructure, pressure reduction gear, and telemetry equipment. What you see on this slide is some proposed exterior design. Again, we want to match the existing structure that's there. No, we want to be good neighbors. We did look at non-pipeline alternatives. So in addition to the proposed build that I just described, you know, these options on this slide were extensively explored. We at Eversource, we pride ourselves in being one of the greenest energy companies in the United States. We are proposing to be carbon neutral by 2030. You know, we looked at these options of energy efficiency, demand response, electrification, geothermal, and renewable and differentiated supply. But these are, and we will pursue these technologies, and we will move forward on a parallel track along with this proposed project into the future. But these options today are not able to mitigate the reliability risk of the 58,000 customers that now are dealing with this risk today. What we're going to do with this proposed option and the other options, which we filed along with our proposed option to the Energy Facility Siting Board, is we propose to submit this, this package to the EFSB before the end of the year. It's roughly a 2-year regulatory process where many different stakeholders and many different interested parties get to comment and have their voices heard. Even prior to the EFSB process, we're doing outreach like we are right now with this body, but also we are going to host 2 virtual open houses, which I'll talk about in more detail here in just a moment. But it's a long process. It is part of the state's Department of Public Utilities process, and we want the voices to be heard. In addition to the EFSB, there are many local and state permits that will be needed. This is a very busy slide. I'm not going to read all of them, but just the EFSB is just one body, and we have to follow all the other local permitting that may be required. So just like this meeting now, we at Eversource, we're doing community outreach. You know, we want to get input from the public. So now is the time, now that we've advanced the project, we want to let you know about it so you're informed and we can hear what you have to say about it. All the details of the project, you know, now that they've become clear, we want to share it, and we have been, you know, slowly with some municipal officials, with regulatory bodies such as this one, but we're going to continue to do so. Our virtual open houses, and they're virtual because of the Delta variant of COVID-19, will be held on November 9th and 10th. More details the login credentials will be on our website, and they'll also be mailed in a postcard to all of the abutters along the proposed routes. We want to be good neighbors. We want you to be informed. We and the EFSB want to hear your input. And through the EFSB process, there are many opportunities in person, verbal, written, and through their website to hear your concerns and comments. And lastly, this is the project contact information. So we have a hotline regarding this project. We have a website. And tell you what, if you grab your smartphone right now and you turn on the camera and you hold it up to the screen, this QR code will lead you right to our website. And then also there's you know, my contact information, project manager, and Chuck Burnham, who I believe is on this call. He's running our community outreach to the neighbors. Counselors and others, that concludes the formal part of my briefing, and we're more than happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Joe. If you want to go ahead and stop sharing your screen for now, that way we can get the full screen view back. And then if we have to pop things up and refer back, we can do that at the proper time. Before we get started with questions, I know Councilor Hurst, the 3rd member of our committee, has joined us. So thank you, Councilor Hurst. We are also joined by Councilor Fenton, you saw, and I want to recognize and thank for joining us Mark Strange and Steve Morantz, who are both members of the Long Meadow Select Board. So we appreciate you being here. So I have a couple of questions. I see Councilor Davila's hand is up. I know Councilor Fenton had a question. So I want to kick off with a couple and then we'll pass it around. Joe, what's the proposed or anticipated cost of the project, the total cost?
Right, and sorry, am I still sharing? Or, oh, there we go. I apologize. It took me forever to find that. I could share. Now I have to learn to unshare. Tell you what, I would like to defer that either to Rich Salvarez, the project manager, or if Mark Gonzalez ever wants to answer that one. And I don't know, Rich, are you on? Did I lose you?
Yep. Sorry about that, Joe. I got to go into my notes here to pull that up. Just give me a moment, if you would. Yeah, the cost of the project ranges from $22.7 million to $32.7 million. So the shortest route, the kind of the central Forest Park route, is the 22.7. Our preferred route, the western route under the Long Meadow Curve, is 25.2 million, and the longest route, which is the eastern route up Dickinson, is 32.7.
Now, how would that be recouped?
Yeah, so Councilor Letterman, that would be part of our rates in typical of the way that we do construction.
And how would that rate increase be shared in the territory? Because certainly Eversource, right, has a very large territory. This is a project that focuses on a small portion of it. So what should ratepayers in Springfield and surrounding areas that are, allegedly served by this, how is that shared?
So I wouldn't have that number at my fingertips, but that's something we could look into and get back to you.
But what I think, Councilor, so it's my understanding that is borne by all the ratepayers. So it's not just like other projects in the state with large or small, that becomes part of our rate case that we bring forward to the DPU. So it'll be spread out throughout Eversource Massachusetts territory.
Okay. So what's the service life of this project? How long will it last for? How long is the pipe anticipated to last for?
So, it will be a state-of-the-art pipe, cathodically protected. So, life of them are indefinite as you keep them maintained. The existing system right now that goes from the Agawam Gate over the Memorial Bridge to Bliss is 70 years old. Really indefinite as long as we continue to maintain it, Councilor.
And if I'm understanding you correctly, this doesn't put the existing system out of service. It serves as a backup to the existing pipe.
That is correct. So that as Joe said earlier, it creates a second source and a complete backup in the event that we lose it from Agawam along the way or over the Memorial Bridge.
How will this pipe compare to the existing transmission pipe under the Memorial Bridge? How does it compare in size, pressure, capacity?
So you want to take this one, Rich? Talk about the design?
Sure. So the line that feeds the Memorial Bridge is 16-inch steel line operating at 265 pounds. There is a station just west of the bridge at Union Street extension that cuts that pressure down to 60 pounds. And the pipe on the bridge is a 60-pound line, which is 20 inches. And that leads to that regulator station that Joe mentioned on Bliss Street. The line we're putting in is going to be 16 inches as well, similar to the line in West Springfield, but it's actually only going to operate at 200 pounds. So less capacity than the existing line. And the reason behind that is that existing line in West Springfield also serves a power plant. So it's set up to match the capacity that crosses the bridge.
And is there a concern about the reliability of the existing line under the Memorial Bridge, or is this just simply meant as you said a backup? Is there concern with the nature of that line right now?
There's not so much a concern of that line, but there is some exposure there because it is a single point of supply. There are certain things we can't predict. If there's a third party damage to the line, if there's damage to the bridge or future maintenance to the bridge, that could seriously impact the customer. So it's not tied to an existing issue with the facility itself, but it's tied to that single point of failure kind of aspect.
And are there other examples in your service territory where you're pursuing similar projects or where similar types of backups exist?
Yes, many of our critical facilities like regulator stations, gate stations, a lot of our telemetry systems have built-in redundancy, and that's tied to, in many cases, code requirements that have developed over the years and the decades of natural gas service. And so really the industry over the years has been moving towards additional redundancy additional safeties, and this just falls in line with that concept.
But is there another area in your territory where you have the same setup, where you have a second line coming in as you're proposing here, or where you're proposing to construct one?
That's a good question. So many of our pressure systems that we do operate in all of our service territories are generally either dual or multi-fed, meaning that there's at least 2 or 3 or even more sources of supply. There are isolated systems out there where there's a single point of supply, but I would say none that are of this magnitude.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, that's exactly right. As what I've learned of this project is, we, Eversource, and actually every utility, there may be a cul-de-sac or a small neighborhood where there's 10 or 20 homes with a single feed of electric or of gas. But to continue with the reliable delivery of our energy products, anything of size, we have loops and we have redundancy and we have backup. It allows us, when there is an outage, to isolate. The outage may start, say, on the electric side with several thousand people, but then we can isolate down to just a handful, a couple of dozen, while we fix the problem. This is, if it's not the largest, it's one of the largest single feeds that we have in the entire Eversource system.
And so you mentioned the Bliss Street Gate Station, and for counselors who might not know where that is, it's essentially adjacent to the Springfield Police Outpost at Riverfront Park, where all the large greenery is. That's the Bliss Street station. This pipe will go into there as well, and then the gas will be distributed out from that station?
Correct. Yep.
So,
and that's what currently the 60-pound line that crosses the bridge then turns down into that station as well.
so everything still goes through that one station?
Correct.
So what if something happens to that station?
The station has integrated redundancies in it. In fact, all of the equipment in that station is duplicated. So there's 2 of each device, there's 2 of each regulator run. So there's integrated redundancies already in that station.
And same question about the main Tennessee gas pipeline, right? Because these are both coming off of the same pipeline ultimately. Just one's coming off closer to Agawam and running over the Memorial Bridge, and the other, this proposal would be to bring it out through Long Meadow. What if something happens to that line? What's the emergency plan?
Mark might be able to speak to this one better, but I do know that Tennessee Gas does operate parallel lines. And there's isolation valves and so forth that can be used in the event that one of the parallel lines is damaged. So there are redundancies in that system as well.
Yeah, that's correct, Rich. They do. Tenneco does have 2 lines that run up to their PODs, gate stations, for redundancy, and they will, if they do have some type of repair that's needed. They have isolation valves along the line as it comes up the East Coast to be able to manipulate the system.
And so my last question for now, and then we'll move on to some other counselors, and I'll circle back, is, what if something were to happen today? What plan is in place from Eversource for continuity of service relative to the Memorial Gas pipeline, or the Memorial Bridge pipeline? And with that said too, when was the last time something occurred there that led to some sort of failure?
Yeah, I can take this one, Rich. So, Counselor, we do have an emergency plan that governs these types of incidents. We do have an incident command center, which is actually located here in Southborough. So we would follow those plans through our incident command structure, working with municipalities to handle outages in our system. So we do have, we're actually doing a lot of training right now with your fire department and others on incident command to coordinate incidents like this that could happen. Obviously, the reason we're here today, because of the magnitude of this one, certainly our concern is the duration, the length, because of the magnitude of the amount of customers that could be out, dependent on the time of year.
But what would happen? Walk me through.
So if we had an incident that was on the Agawam side, obviously, as Joe pointed out, we could lose up to 58,000 customers that would be out. We would then have to shut off every service in that area in Springfield and surrounding towns. We would have to make whatever repairs, whether it was, damage from a third party, severing the line, or other types of damage that could happen. And then we would have to restore. And as Joe said, that's the piece that really is a lot of passion around us to move this project and get it in front of you to try to understand that exact thing you're talking about, Counselor, is the effort that it would take to restore that. As a example, we've looked at a lot of past history of different utilities having significant issues. And one that I can just mention quickly is in the Newport, Rhode Island area in January of 2019, where the utility had an incident that resulted in about 7,455 customers out, which took 7 days to restore. It was a real hardship in the area. So if you look at the numbers here, we'd be significantly longer period than that to be able to restore. And the other pieces that are
in Rhode Island, what caused it?
There was a issue at the regulator station that caused the regulator to fail. Pressure regulator failure.
What, just a mechanical failure?
Yeah, it was a mechanical failure due to a freeze up.
What could have prevented that?
Second source of supply.
Well, that would have prevented the outage, but what would have prevented the mechanical failure?
I don't have the exact pieces of that. What would have prevented that?
Sure. Okay. So we'll start with Councilor Davila since he's a member of the committee, and then we'll go to Councilor Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to Eversource team for doing this presentation. I'm excited that we finally have a realistic plan as to what the routes are going to be. And before I go into my plethora of questions, which I will try to limit, I would like for Eversource to contact me. I am the counselor for these, where it appears where this project will be the meat of the project. And I definitely want to have you guys address the Forest Park Civic Association to enlighten them as to this proposal. But my first question is regarding, if I may, let me pull up the map here, the routes. I see that the preferred route is going to be down Long Hill Street. I mean, starting from Bliss Street, it's going to come up West Columbus, East Columbus, West Columbus into Long Hill Street. Is that correct?
It would be Long Hill Street leading to East Columbus.
Okay. And then I see that there's another route here, which is in green, which is preferred alternative route variation number 2. Is that going to go through the actual Forest Park itself, to the actual park?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me where in the park is that going to go?
It follows the Magawiska Street. I apologize. It may be Magawiska Road. Yeah, it is Magawiska Road.
So it's going to be in Parkland, right?
It's going to be in Parkland. However, my understanding is that that is a city street as well. So I think we're kind of in both territories.
So can you talk to me then?
It'll cut through the heart of the park.
Say that again?
It'll cut through the heart of the park. It'll be right in between the lily ponds.
Mr. Shea? Mr. Shea?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Davila.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I would like to hear that again because it might be relevant if you allow it, please.
Right, and so if I may, Councilor, yes, so that's why it's not our preferred route. We don't want to disturb the park if we can. Magawiska Road already has some utilities in it. I do believe it has water, it has sewer, and there is a gas line in there already. There are, if you look at either side, there are some some wetlands and some seasonal streams and things like that. So it has some issues from an engineering and a potential of, if there was flooding there. So that's one consideration, but also to your point, yes, it is a park, and when we present to EFSB, that's something, we've looked at, it's something they will look at.
Yeah.
And that's why it's not our preferred route.
I understand that, but it's nevertheless, it's a suggested route. And I think it needs to be discussed, because I'm going to be honest with you. I have a lot of concerns and objections. This is going to go through a single inch of the park. That park is a jewel of the neighborhood. It's a beautiful park. It was donated by Mr. Barney way back then. And that park needs to be protected, and it needs to be in pristine conditions. That will be my first deep concern of this project, that is going to go through the park. But let me go on real quick. I want to, if I may, to one of the Councilor Letterman's questions, how this money is going to be recouped. You say that it's going to be 22.7 all the way down to 33 millions. And I believe if I heard correctly, it's going to be through rate increase. Is that going to be on top of the 5% rate increase that we've been seeing on the paper recently?
And yeah, so there's two things there, Councilor. One, and I'm going to correct Rich. He was looking at one number. If we include the infrastructure we have to do at our Bliss Street station and the point of delivery, the price tag is actually closer to 40 million.
Okay.
And I just want to be clear. I believe Mr. Salvarez misspoke. And then two is that will go before the Department of Public Utilities, in a rate review. And that's something, and another thing the EFSB looks at, in addition to, the environmental and the community impacts, they also look at cost. I mean, we want to do this in, with as minimal impact on the ratepayers as possible. So I understand where your concerns are coming from, and I understand that.
So your answer to my question is what?
And then the other question. So yeah, they're
no, regarding the rate
increase. I'm sorry.
Regarding the rate increase, is that
right? So thank you. I blanked for just a moment. So the rate increase, that's actually a worldwide supply issue. That's not us changing our rates. We're distributing that gas, and worldwide there's a shortage, and with supply and demand, that's being felt all over the globe. So unfortunately, it shows up on the bill, but that's redistributed. That's coming from the supplier.
Got you. Mr. President, I realize it's 3:17. I do have a plethora of questions. Before I ask my final question, Mr. Chairman, so that I can give my colleagues an opportunity to ask questions, I would like to kindly suggest to you, sir, that this is such an important issue that we should set Eversource to address the committee of the whole on this critical issue. If you find fit, Mr. Chair. And Joe, my final question on this is, I understood that it's a 70-year-old pipeline, correct? That is not broken. And so at the end of this project, are we going to have two existing sources of gas running simultaneously? Or are we, in other words, if it's not broken, why fix it?
I think Mark will be able to take that. Mark, you want to take that question?
Yeah, I can take that one. Counselor, yes. So we will need, we're proposing that both sections of pipeline, the piece from Agawam across the bridge and the section from Long Meadow POD to Bliss Street are both needed to mitigate this risk. Does that answer the question?
No, not really. I'm sorry. You lost me there. I'm sorry.
So both pipelines will be intact. So the line from Agawam across the bridge into Springfield to Bliss, that's 70 years old, that line stays intact.
Right.
And the new line from the POD and Long Meadow down to Bliss provides that second source.
Okay, so we're going to have two existing working, functioning gas pipelines supplying gas to the residents, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to reiterate to you, gentlemen, thank you for this. But again, I'm going to strongly, in the most clear way that I can possibly can, I don't want a single inch of this pipeline to go through our park here in Forest Park. It's pristine, is our jewel, and it is protected. I don't want a single inch to go through that pipeline. Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Chair, and those are my questions.
And Mr. Chair, if I may just add one thing, another, the councilor mentioned the second pipe, an additional benefit, because it is a single feed, the customers that are at the very end of our distribution network, up here in Longmeadow, East Longmeadow, Indian Orchard, at the very end, during the coldest winter days when consumption is very high, there are some low pressure issues that are of a concern, and we have to mitigate those. By having that second feed, those issues will be taken care of. So there's another benefit. So, you know, our customers and your constituents will have more reliable service in the wintertime.
Thank you for your answer, Joe. Thank you. Those are my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. I also want to recognize and thank Council President Marcus Williams for joining us. Councilor Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councilor Davila, for raising some of those questions that I was trying to flag earlier about that Mago-Worcester Road in Forest Park. I share your concern and wouldn't want to see the pipeline go through the park. So thank you for raising that. I have one question, and it's more for the city. And maybe this is, I'm not sure if it's a Chris or an Eddie question, but what permitting is required from the city or the city council in order to complete this project?
Eventually, when the project is approved, submission will be made by Eversource Gas to the DPW, and it will go through the Board of Public Works process for approval. And because it's a bigger project, obviously, there's a lot more review that's going to go into it, where we're going in the street. But then once it goes through the Board of Public Works process, it gets referred to the City Council as a petition.
Okay, thank you. The other statement, and leading to a question that I'd like to make, is that it's been made public that Eversource owes the city of Springfield over $44 million in personal property taxes that the company has been withholding since 2012. That amount, with penalty and interest, is costing the company and ultimately potentially ratepayers $9,000 in interest each day. And the company has withheld similar payments in over 80 communities across the Commonwealth. Earlier today, I read that in response to some public outcry about this and the ongoing appeals that Eversource has maintained, the company stated publicly just a few hours ago, quote, "We take our responsibility to manage costs for customers very seriously, and we do not agree that our customers should carry the burden of closing municipal budget gaps through utility rates," the Eversource spokesman told Mass Live. I've got a tremendous concern about this, particularly because in August of last year, Eversource said in public DPU testimony, quote, "The company has demonstrated that legal challenge is now futile." Went on to say, Eversource must pay any tax assessment imposed in municipalities where it operates, and the strategy of heading off these costs through legal challenge is simply a waste of time, money, and effort, end quote. And that is the company's publicly stated position before the DPU. So my question is, this infrastructure improvement, if it is approved, would result in a correlating increase in the personal property tax assessment in the city of Springfield. Your company's been withholding over $44 million, $9,000 in interest each day. When will you pay it, and why haven't you?
Thank you, Councilor Fenton, for your question. You know, and as a regulated utility and a committed corporate neighbor, you know, we're one of the largest taxpayers in the state and always pay in accordance with Massachusetts laws and regulations. You know, because the taxes that we pay are ultimately reflected on the customer's rates, it's our responsibility to challenge a municipality's valuation if it's determined to be excessive. Since the beginning of that process in this longstanding case, we've been working with the city of Springfield in good faith toward an equitable result for Springfield and our customers, and remain committed to doing that going forward. Our case with the city is before the Mass Appellate Tax Board as we speak. And for this reason, I can't go into any further detail, and I hope you understand.
Appreciate that very much, Mr. Mitchell. And I've actually read that statement before, so thank you for reading it into the record. I would just like to submit into the record again, Eversource's own testimony under oath before the Department of Public Utilities that these legal challenges are, quote, futile, and that it is a waste of time, money, and effort, end quote. So please drop your case and pay your bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Fenton and Councilor Davila. I certainly stand by your questions. I know that Councilor Hurst and Council President Williams are here. We have a few minutes left. So gentlemen, if you have any questions, we would certainly welcome them at this time. And as I wait to see if we do have those, I have a couple of follow-up questions for Eversource. And again, thank you very much for appearing and providing such detailed information. First being just to clarify, because I think both myself and Councilor Davila asked this question, I felt like the answers were slightly different in both times. The dual fed nature, is it in fact that both of those pipelines will be operating simultaneously and transmitting gas at the same time, or is it that one of them will be dormant?
Yeah, so the existing pipeline is currently, let's just for argument's sake, running at 100%. So 100% of the gas that goes through that pipeline is feeding these 58,000 customers. After this project, that number, the number of customers that old pipeline will serve will drop to 50%, and the new pipeline will take on the other 50%. So the total is still 100%. We're just essentially separating the demand out so that there's now two 100% capacity lines that can achieve the same purpose. And if one goes down, the other one is there to pick up the load.
Okay. I have a couple more questions, but I see Council President Williams has raised his hand, so we'll move to Council President Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and appreciate everyone joining the call today. So I've heard a lot from Eversource. I actually want to kind of just jump down to the city side and hear from Chris for 1 second, if I can. It just seems like, and I apologize, I joined the call late, so if this was discussed, I do apologize, but it just seems that this is massive kind of disruption to an area of Springfield. So what are the conversations being had around the feasibility of this just from the DPW's perspective? And can you just kind of maybe give us some context into that?
Sure. We've probably over the last, I don't know, Joe, 5-6 months have had discussions about various routes and where things, the kind of the really early planning stuff of this sort of project. The one thing about this project, the way that it's planned right now, is that it's a single pipe, meaning going from point A to point B, Long Meadow through Springfield, it's a single pipe. Historically, a lot of times when we're dealing with major projects in the city, we're dealing with a pipe, and then we're also dealing with services and interconnects, all sorts of things like that create a much bigger impact on the city in a particular area. This pipe this pipeline as it goes through Springfield will be a single pipeline, and we will be working with Eversource. And the same question that probably in the back of your mind, Councilor, is the same thing in mind. I am very, very, very interested to know exactly where within the roadway we're going to be putting this. And as I had said to Eversource before, this is where we get into detailed survey, detailed locations, how long construction will take in a particular area, impacts the traffic. That's all sorts of stuff that we will be reviewing at the DPW engineering level when the initial plan comes in, prior to it going to the Board of Public Works.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Chris. Well, I just think, I know Councilor Davila also alluded to this, but, it just seems that Springfield is almost becoming like a second Boston, where it's the unfinished city, right? And this only adds to that. So I just want to make sure that, there is communication coming down from the administration, well, I guess from Eversource to the administration, to the city council, as we are the representatives of the people that are impacted by those changes.
Yeah, and on that, Counselor, like I said, my big concern is exactly where, when you say Long Hill Street, depending upon where it is on Long Hill Street, could be a very benign impact or it could be a massive impact. So we want to make sure that when we start working with them on finding out where this pipe is going to go, we have the least amount of impact as possible. Obviously, my major concern becomes traffic and individual access to properties, whether residential or commercial.
Right. And with that, just last question, would that qualify for eminent domain takings and all of that? I mean, and that would have to be access to the council? At
this point, and based upon the conversation we had, everything's going to be within the existing city right away.
All right, perfect.
So
All right.
yeah, no impacts to properties. And just on that, if it was a regular project, in a lot of these cases, they're replacing lines to homes and things like that do end up obviously impacting people's properties. They're getting new services, et cetera. Projects that have been completed over the last few years on, Allen Street, State Street, and other areas where, we work, Fort Pleasant, where we work with Eversource, because it's kind of a double thing. The main goes in and then you're doing the impact of the services, which is usually greater simply because of of how you're doing the pipe. But the good thing about this, it's a single pipe, no services, and we need to be able to figure out the exact location in the street where we can put this in.
All right, thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Council President and Chris. So we've hit around 3:30. I want to ask a couple of wrapping up questions for Eversource, and then we'll move towards adjournment unless there's any other questions from councilors. So going back to where we were previously on the rates, what is the anticipated return on equity investment for shareholders in Eversource as a result of this project? We've talked about the company's feel for the need. We've talked about the rate increase for customers, but what will shareholders benefit from a project like this in terms of Eversource?
And so I'll take that, Mr. Chairman, and you won't like the answer in that I don't know. So that's not an aspect we're ready to answer, but I can certainly seek that out for you and get back to you. Yeah, I'd like to know who's going to make money and how much money they're going to make from the rate increase. And the other thing I want to clarify is I have an understanding that there's policy within the Commonwealth that this type of expansion returns some sort of guaranteed investment for utilities, somewhere in the realm of 10%. Is that an accurate understanding of that policy? And I'm not sure about the policy, but I just, with all due respect, Mr. Chair, it's not an expansion project. This is reliability. We're doing this because we, Eversource, we are beholden to the Department of Public Utility and to our customers to reliably deliver their energy products. And we've identified a risk. Our previous company, Columbia Gas, identified it. And so 1 year later, after we've acquired the company, we are bringing this project forward to you. And the reason is, it's significant enough that out of the 3 states, that Eversource operates in, this is a fundamentally very important project that we have to move forward. So just want to correct you on that. It's about reliability. It's not expansion. This is to the existing 58,000 customers. We're certainly at the beginning of this process, and so it'll be up to the DPU, right, to evaluate that statement. That's their job, and our job is to make sure that they do their job, right, as the closest elected body to the people. So that's all we're trying to do here. I think what I'll probably want to know after this, and the conversations that I'll want to push forward with the DPU is a cost benefit analysis for the ratepayers. I think we want to know, what this will cost the ratepayers, who will make money off of it, what the increase to reliability, if any, there will be, and what all the options are that can be considered in that regard. I think that's what we're hearing from folks. And I think there's also significant concern on any environmental impact, especially with regards to the park, as my colleague, Councilor Dabble, has said. So I plan to call for an independent cost benefit analysis relative to the rate increase, and I'm hopeful that the DPU will be agreeable to that. I'll also be calling for DPU hearings in the city of Springfield to make sure that residents here in our area are able to comment directly to the DPU
And I am hopeful that residents will participate in the process that Eversource has also laid out for their open houses, which I'm sure they will. I do know we have a lot of residents on the call today. As we discussed at the beginning, the plan for today was to receive the presentation for the committee and have questions from counselors, but there certainly will be an opportunity for members of the community to ask questions both through the DPU process, through Eversource's process, and if necessary, certainly the City Council can facilitate additional opportunities for that to occur. I see Councilor Davila has his hand up, so Councilor Davila, I'll give you the last question, and then we will prepare to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quick question, gentlemen. Can you talk us through a timeline if everything was going to work out well? When will the shovel be on the ground, and when will this project be completed?
Rich?
Yeah, so if everything was to go according to plan, right now we're expecting 2024 would be kind of the approximate construction start date. There's some variability there in the EFSB process, so it's hard to give you an exact estimate, but that's kind of been our working assumption for now.
Okay, and what will be the end date for the project?
Construction is going to be also depending on quite a few factors between 1 and 2 years.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that. And again, I look forward to a more robust conversation. I still have a plethora of questions, as does everybody and all the residents here on the call. As I mentioned, this project is as I look at it, the meat of it is going to be through my district. And again, I ask you, gentlemen, to contact me to make the necessary arrangements so that you could make a presentation to the Forest Park Civic Associations and any other residents in this area. And again, I say for the last time, I wrap up with this. Not a single inch to the park. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Thank you, Joe, and your team for being here. We'll look forward to continuing our conversation, Chris and Ed, and all the residents as well. Also want to thank our administrative staff for helping us set up and run the meeting. Joe, if you could be so kind as to send that presentation on to the administrative staff so it could be distributed out to the full council, be greatly appreciated. And at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I'd be more than happy to share that with you. And I do want, and Councilor Davila, we will have more conversations. And just put in one last plug, Councilor Letterman, is November 9th at 6 p.m. is our virtual open house. And then November 10th at 1 p.m. And thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Joe. Councilor Davila, can you make a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second it. And I'll also rule that it is in order. So we are now adjourned. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you, everybody. Good day.